And we are live. Hello and welcome in to this week's edition of the Hard Fowl. I am your host, Intern Joe Macheca. Joined with me as always, my co-host, the one, the only, Jack Veltri. Jack, you were in Knoxville last night. Plenty to talk about for the Hoop Show as we get into it here. But you were in Knoxville last night. You made it home safe. Everything, all the drive, travel's all right?
Yeah, man. I stayed in Knoxville last night after that crazy game. Didn't get out of the arena probably till I didn't get back to my hotel till about 11 last night. And then, woke up this morning, stopped at Buc-ee's, and then homebound after that. I got back to Columbia probably around like 2:30. So, I'm back now. I'm settled in, and I'm still just processing the last. It hasn't even been 24 hours yet. It's been wild these last few days.
Yeah, good old cocky top it was up in Knoxville, South Carolina, obviously knocking off the number 5 ranked Tennessee Volunteers again up on the road on another Tuesday night. Jack, what is up with them upsetting top ranked teams on Tuesday nights?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think last week when it was the Kentucky game, I think it was just one of those nights where things were just clicking for South Carolina. And, upsets happen a lot in college basketball. It could be anyone's night. Look at Georgia Tech last night against UNC in Atlanta. So things like that happen, right? So, after that game, I think not a lot of people took South Carolina seriously. And then they went on to beat Missouri. And then you go on the road. Tough place to play at Thompson Boiling Arena out in Knoxville. And, you're 13.5-point underdogs, I believe. And you outplay Tennessee just straight up. You held them to, I think, a season low in points, 59 points last night. You hit enough clutch shots in the end to get the job done. And you're coming away a winner and gaining a lot more respect, heading into the rest of the week.
Yeah, Jack. Biggest thing that stood out to me from this one is the free throw shooting. It's kind of a boring number, but you have to be really, really, really good at it to win games on the road, right? And we saw South Carolina do just that. They took care of business from the line. They were pretty good. I believe they only missed 3 free throws all game. They were 15 of 18, 83%. So pretty darn good from everybody, right? And that's how you hold on to a game, and especially in a tough environment like Tennessee. Jack, walk me through what you saw from the Gamecocks at the line.
Yeah, like you said, they only missed a few free throws. Honestly, you knew it was a good night when someone like Josh Gray, who couldn't hit anything like 2 weeks ago, went 2 for 2 at the line at one point. It was crazy to think about from that point of view. But they were money when they needed to be, right? I think a guy that really stood out to me was Miles Studi, who coming off the injury, the shoulder injury he had about 2 weeks ago. You didn't know what he was going to look like, but he looked pretty good in warmups the last 2 games. He was really itching to play on Saturday against Missouri. Ultimately, he didn't play. But he coming into this Tennessee game, he was available to play. He got in pretty quickly, and then he was money all night. He was perfect from 3-point range. And then at the end of the game, when you want to send your best free throw shooter to the line, the ball kept going to Studi, and he hit 4 free throws to ice the game. I mean, you got to give credit where it's due. That place was rocking last night. They were the Tennessee fans were really, really loud during those free throws, and Studi had, he didn't feel any pressure at the line, and that just shows you how much of a gamer he really is. And it just goes back to bringing in those veterans. But on the other side of things with Tennessee, I mean, there were multiple reasons they lost that game last night. We can get into all that later. But I think one of the big things you have to look at is that they went 12 of 20 at the free throw line. 8 misses right there. That's it's not necessarily good. And then, you get, just a lot of guys having off nights. I mean, Dalton Connect, for as good of a game as he had, he was insane last night, by the way. He missed 4 free throws. So imagine he hits 4 of those free throws that he missed. I don't know what happens. It's crazy to think about. Maybe this game goes to overtime, and maybe something wild happens from there. But that didn't happen. And South Carolina did a really good job taking advantage of a lot of Tennessee mistakes.
Yeah, most certainly, Jack. I think one of the bigger complaints from the Tennessee side was the officiating, right? But you look at the fouls. South Carolina had 18 fouls to Tennessee's 16. But I mean, sure, there is the argument of timeliness. But again, I would also say, that game. I mean, if from a Tennessee standpoint, it felt like South Carolina's game against Georgia a little bit. The refs tightened things up towards the end of the game. And I mean, Jack, I don't think the officiating was that bad. Like there was, maybe a couple close calls that could have gone either way. But I think they did a pretty good job of keeping this game, just in the balance, right? You didn't let anything get away from you. They had control throughout the whole game. And yeah, sure, there were some fouls that were, a little timely, but other than that, man, I don't think it was too bad.
Yeah, I thought the first half was fairly well called. I thought, there were a lot of calls that didn't go Tennessee's way, and a lot. I saw the comments last night with a lot of tic tac fouls and stuff,
Yeah.
which I kind of get. There were some bad calls. It just felt like anytime Tennessee drove in the paint in the second half, they were pretty much going to the line, especially when Connect drove up and got fouled every time. It seemed like whether he actually did or not. I mean, it's kind of up for your interpretation, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a real game where it's like, oh man, I mean, the refs, I mean, it's going to make a difference in the game. I mean, now I think it was the same leading official was the one from the Georgia game, if I'm not mistaken, and he was, I mean, he was atrocious that game, right? I mean, every 5 seconds there was a foul, a whistle blown. But I think last night kind of felt like, okay, I think they let him play a little more. And it was a physical game too. I mean, that's kind of how South Carolina's been lately. But again, Tennessee was kind of matching that physicality for a little bit there. So, I don't think the refs were the main. I don't think it was really that big of a deal last night. I think South Carolina, when they did go to the line, they took care of business, and Tennessee didn't. I think that's just really what it comes down to.
Yeah, plain and simply. Jack, Tennessee obviously presented a big challenge with Dalton Connect. We saw how South Carolina was able to combat that, bringing as many guys into the post. Also, shout out to CMB. We'll give him some talk here as well. But yeah, Jack, walk me through. I mean, how did the Gamecocks slay the Giant?
Yeah, I think you knew that it was going to be a tall task to stop this team, right? Really good defensive team, top five in the country, really good offense too. With obviously Connect, who has been an animal lately, right? He coming into last night, he had 5 straight games where he was scoring, over 25 points a game. So it was going to be a tall task, but it's not just him either. There's been a ton of guys around him that have been really good. Vescovi and Ziegler and Adu, guys like that have been really good this season for Tennessee. But I think last night you just saw that while South Carolina wasn't able to stop Dalton Connect, I mean, he had 31 points on 11 to 24 shooting, which is really good, right? That's a good night for him right there. But you're able to contain the rest of the Tennessee offense, which, in my opinion, made the difference in the game. Because I think Vescovi was the next leading scorer, and he only had 10 points. Other than that, everyone was pretty much shut down. Adu really didn't do much in the paint. Ziegler, he didn't hit a single field goal last night. He only had 2 points. So bravo to South Carolina on that end for holding Tennessee scoreless, or not scoreless, but keeping Tennessee in check. And I mean, think about it. Dalton Connect pretty much had more than half of Tennessee's points last night. Of the 59, Connect scores 31. So you really got to look at it from that aspect of, okay, we didn't stop the big man, the leading guy on this offense. But again, no one has lately, and Tennessee's been able to roll. Well, when you stop the rest of this team, you're able to find a way to win. And so that's more of a Tennessee issue moving forward, is that they got to get these guys figured out. They got to help Connect, because they're not. I mean, honestly, if they have a game like this in March, if they make the tournament, which I think they will, and I think they'll end up being fine. But if they have a game like this in March, they're going to get their butt kicked. So
The toast. Yeah.
I think you need, if you're Tennessee, you got to really just figure it out quickly. But yeah, I think just South Carolina had a good plan last night. I think there were a lot of things that you had to look at coming into that game of, okay, we got to stop this, then we got to stop that. I think they really did a good job of breaking the game down and simplifying it. and taking everything one step at a time instead of looking at the bigger picture and trying to do everything at once.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think, credit to South Carolina's guards, Talon Cooper, Michi Johnson, Miles Studi also did a really good job. And I mean, Jacoby Wright as well. And Zach Davis too. I mean, also he started the game off. I mean, with Studi coming in, being in the rotation, coming off of injury. But yeah, the guards did a really good job of just, isolating Connect, only letting Connect beat you. BJ Mack and C&B had their hands full, and they both still did a really, really good job, just sending help to it, trying to, at least do something to stop the big man. And sure, you didn't stop, Connect as well, but what you did do is, you shut down everyone else. And you control the tempo when you do that, right? It's hard to control tempo from the defensive end, but South Carolina did that. And then, I mean, offensively, they look for good shots at the end of the day. Lamont is less concerned with the offense and more with the defense. And so I think that's, one thing that this team does really well is that they're able to, control the tempo. Obviously, they don't have the ball or anything, but, they're able to, force different looks, force weird looks for opposing offenses. And, that helps them obviously generate different looks on the offensive end. I mean, you start running in transition. You can also pull it up, slow it down, but it really helps with the game flow and the control of the game when you can really do what South Carolina is doing on the defensive end.
Yeah, definitely. And just another thing about last night with, Tennessee and stuff. I mean, look, man, like I said, they've been really good lately. But I think there was a stretch in the second half, in particular, that I think I feel like South Carolina probably should have done a better job of taking advantage of it. But again, I don't think shots were really falling for them at the time. I think they held Tennessee without a field goal for, I want to say 7 to 8 minutes last night in the middle of the second half. And I mean, it just goes to show. I mean, this defense is. They are for real. They are really. I think South Carolina's offense is what it is at this point. It's they're gonna take a lot of shots from three, and most of the time, I mean, they've been able to hit. And even when they weren't shooting that well last night, I think South Carolina had enough in them to find some clutchness and get some good shots off, and hit more than Tennessee. But I think just the way this defense has been able to step up all year long is it is why South Carolina is where it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, South Carolina, they didn't shoot the ball too well last night. I mean, 33%. It's good enough to win you the game, but they weren't on by any means. And Michi didn't have his best night. I think that's also another big quality of this team is that, you have a lot of guys up and down that can fill roles with different matchups, right? Sometimes BJ Mack is going to have the preferable matchup and go off. Same thing with Josh Gray, right? I mean, Tennessee being the big man focused team that they are, the big men for South Carolina stepped up in a huge way, right? When you face a guard heavy team like Alabama, and granted you didn't have as much success against Alabama, so that's not really a good example. But you look at like Missouri, guard heavy teams that allow guard play. And true, the SEC is more of a guard league anyways too. You look at, I mean, Kentucky's another guard team as well, but just depending on the matchups, different guys are going to go off, and this team trusts each other to hold down the fort. They trust each other to make open shots, go off when it's your night, and then swing the rock, play good defense when it's not your night. So Jack, I mean, I think that's the culture of this team too. They play for each other, and also for their coach too. But Lamont Paris has had this team, on a full 180. They went from being, projected. We talked about this a lot last night in the post-game show, but they went from projected being, the last ranked team at media days in the SEC to now, being in contention for a share of the lead, depending on how Alabama and obviously South Carolina needs to take care of business this weekend. But depending on how Alabama finishes the weekend slate, you could be atop for a solo lead of the SEC.
God, that's insane to think about, right? I just think it is wild to really think about. And I think you've really hit the nail on the head there, Joe. I think just the turnaround, it's crazy. I think they were picked last to finish in the SEC. That was, I think, just a little bit of a surprise to some people, because I think there were signs of improvement at the end of last year, and I think they had some good games. Obviously, the record didn't really reflect it, but it was year one, right? And I think the consensus was South Carolina was going to be a little better this year. Maybe they finish top 10 in the SEC. That would be a huge improvement. But the rate at which this team is climbing so steadily, it's remarkable. It's something that you don't see every day. I just think it's wild to think about right now that they could be up for a share of first place in the SEC, and it's going to be February tomorrow. I did not think that was going to happen, Joe. I don't. I doubt many people thought that was going to be the case, and that's South Carolina's MO this year, right? They continue to prove people wrong, and they have a lot of doubters, and I think they are a great example of how you should use that to your advantage whenever someone doesn't believe in you. You find every way possible to make sure that you can prove them wrong. And for the most part, outside of a few, 3 losses this season, they've been really good. So I think now the question is, can you keep that up as more eyeballs come on you, or do you fold in the moment and kind of get back down to reality a little bit? But I think right now this team is in a groove, and I mean, it's going to be hard to stop them moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay Diz says Studi with the fresh legs really helped a bunch. Yes, absolutely. Very, very big addition to get him back as sooner rather than later, right? Because I mean, he was projected to be out for a lot longer than he actually was. So huge to get Studi back. And then Jay Diz, we also have Burley, Todd Gwynn, check it in. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. But yeah, Jack, I mean, a lot of this is credit to Lamont Paris and just what he's been able to do with the program. Again, I talked about it in length last night on the show, but people, when he first got here, it's like, oh, is he going to be able to, handle the SEC coming from Chattanooga, all of that. Well, the favorite point, and I'm sure you're probably tired of me saying this, but because I say it just about every time we talk about Lamont. But again, his experience building a roster at Chattanooga has served him well at South Carolina, right? This year's team is example of that, right? He has a lot of guys who just want to play basketball. They just want to win at the end of the day. And so, when you get players like that and who are willing to buy into, hey, come do it here. We've got this team. We've got it ready to go. Just come be a player here. We're going to go try and win. Just play basketball, playing for each other. So Lamont deserves all the credit that he's getting right now, turning this team around, doing a complete 180. And I think, from the looks of it, knock on wood here, it's going to continue despite, however this year ends, right? I think, Lamont is setting himself up and this program up, for a healthy future, regardless of how, this year ends up. But it has been a magical one, Jack. Surprised a lot of folks. I couldn't see it coming. Not this good, right? Not like a lock. Like we talked about it last night on the postgame show. Maybe that this team sneaks in is what I was thinking at the beginning of the year. Just maybe sneaks in, but they're very much in the tournament right now.
Oh yeah, LP is setting himself up for end of the year discussion with Ray Tanner of, okay, what kind of pay raise we looking at next season? But no, I think Lamont had his hands full this year with having to figure out a way of, okay, well, year one was whatever. He had a roster full of the Island of Misfit Toys for all it's just
and then and a GG Jackson type player.
Yeah, and GG Jackson, yeah. And you get Michi Johnson. You go into the bargain bin and just find who you can get to just put a team together. So I don't really fault LP for that. He came into a tough situation after Frank Martin got fired, and it's tough. But with year two, you got to start back at the beginning, right? He, first off, brought in Colin Murray Boyles, in his recruiting class for a freshman. That was big. And then in terms of the transfer portal, where he really needed to find guys that could come in and play, he brought in my opinion, some of the best guys out of the portal, right? Talon Cooper, I keep saying it, he brings that veteran experience. He's been with multiple teams now, been around for, I think this is his 5th season now. He's been awesome to watch. We saw it last night. And then BJ Mack, big guy from Wofford, has a lot of potential, and he definitely shows it. And then Miles Studi, I mean, like I said last night, he was phenomenal. He really stepped up, and he just adds so much depth and talent to an already pretty solid team. And then Stephen Clark, I mean, he started a ton this year. He hasn't been great, but he's provided again that experience that this team desperately needed. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Credit where it's due on that end. But I think at this point with LP, just the discussion isn't just, okay, is he going to be SEC Coach of the Year? Which I think it's either going to be him or Chris Beard from Ole Miss. Both teams were in really crappy situations last year at the bottom of the SEC. So I guess it really comes down to just who finishes better probably at that point. But I think we also have to start talking about, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but if this continues, right?
Yeah.
We're talking national coach of the year potentially right here.
Yeah.
This stuff does not happen by accident, right? You don't go from 11-21 to possibly first place in the SEC in February. That is uncommon, and for that and just everything going on with this team and how good things have been and how bought in these guys are and wanting to play for Lamont, it's just astounding. I'd really like to go back to when he first got hired and just look back at what the reaction was, because I'm sure it was like, okay, is this guy really the right guy for the job? Maybe we're better off with Frank. I mean, I don't know. I mean, South Carolina, you got to remember, South Carolina swung and missed on so many different guys. With Dennis Gates and the coach that is now at Xavier and stuff like that. It's just, South Carolina. At the time, it didn't seem like a great hire, maybe, but now it looks like South Carolina hired the perfect coach to lead these guys. And I mean, say what you will about Lamont and his track record and stuff. I mean, he's a good coach, man. He gets these guys ready to play every game, and he's got them really, really bought in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay Diz makes a good point. The NIL collectives better be ready to keep this team together. Don't want to see guys like CMB getting poached. Yeah, absolutely. In this day and age of the NIL, era and the transfer portal era, that is a very real possibility. Jay Diz, and it's a valid one too. And I guess the only thing I can add to that is, and Jay Diz, I'm sure you already have before because you are a loyal viewer, listener, but always support Garnet Trust. It's never a bad time.
No, not at all. Yeah. Always a good time, man. I think you really do have to try to keep this team together, right? Because you're going to have guys that leave. That's college basketball. You're going to have guys that are going to leave, whether it's because they are ready for like the NBA draft or want a new opportunity. It happens, right? We saw it last year when Gigi Jackson left. Hayden Brown ran out of eligibility. These things happen, but this is a special group, man, and that's the one word that was very, very, it kept getting repeated last night during press conferences. Special, and I think Miles Studi really put it best. Is that paraphrasing here, but in 50 years or whatever, whenever these guys catch up again, I mean, they're going to be reminiscing on what this season has meant to them. And I know it's still far from over and things could change. And, but right now, I mean, this team is more than just a feel good story at this point. They are becoming, a real dark horse to make some noise potentially in March. And that's something that back in October, when we were just kicking this whole thing off, I probably would have said maybe the NIT, maybe if they were lucky, but now, I mean, March, I mean, it's becoming a legit possibility at this point. I think today they were a 6 seed in bracketology, which is really good. It's great progress. I think they were a 9 seed last week. So just continue to play your brand of ball and, just keep feeling that disrespect, I guess. I think that's really where they play their best.
Yeah, absolutely. Burley says, do we play Alabama again? We lost that one badly. Todd answers no. Nope. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you might see Alabama or in the SEC tournament or, potentially in the NCAA tournament again. But I think, after that loss, you're a little bit more equipped to face that team, right? You kind of felt the thunder from Nate Oates in Alabama, right? You understand what that team is made of now, and you're a better team because of it. And I think, because of that loss, South Carolina was a lot more prepared to face Tennessee on the road. I think Bama was their first real road test, and they just got smoked. I mean, that happens. Sometimes you get beat and it doesn't get any better, and you can't catch up. So they learned a lot, and I'm sure, towards the end of the year, if we ask them, what did you guys take from the Alabama loss? Did it motivate you at all? And I'm sure we will get a resounding yes, because that one was not a fun basketball game to play in, I'm sure. But again, things have done a 180 from there, right? I mean, watching that game, Jack, to be honest, I was like, oh no, here we go again. Like, the SEC schedule, maybe this team was pretending a little bit. Like, I mean, I'm sure everyone did, right? Had their doubts about this team. So, complete 180 from Bama. Now, I mean, you also brought up Talon Cooper. We'll get to, I did want to swing back to him, but yeah, Jack, this team has righted the ship and are playing their best ball. They've gotten through January, I think we can say.
Yeah, you get through January pretty unscathed, I think, for the most part. And it's a good first month of SEC play. Now, more importantly, when you look in terms of metrics and stuff, and I don't like looking at Ken Palm and Warren Nolan and stuff like that. I don't like looking at all these fancy sites that are they're just numbers that sometimes you don't really understand. But with the way college basketball is and how important it is to get these quad 1 and quad 2 type of wins, these higher echelon wins. South Carolina's been doing that. I think now they are up to 4-2 in quad 1 games, and they're 3-0 in quad 2. So overall, that's 7-2. And then, at the beginning of the year, you had a lot of quad 4 wins. You're 9-0 right now in quad 4 games, which for a time is definitely holding this team back. But now that they've got back-to-back weeks where they've beaten top 6 teams in the country, there is no more debate about whether or not this team's schedule is tough. I mean, yeah, sure, the non-conference play was pretty light, but I think that's by design to try to get these teams or South Carolina some wins stacked up and get some good, some feel-good mojo heading into SEC play, and they've taken care of business. So I think just continue to play the way you are and stack up those wins, and we'll see what happens. But I think right now, NCAA tournament, like I said, very legit possibility, but you have to continue to play well and avoid some of these dud losses against teams like Georgia and LSU, Vanderbilt. You don't play Missouri again, so I think just keep playing well and see what happens.
Yeah, Jack. I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, after the Kentucky win, I thought Tennessee was the last, I guess, boogeyman on the schedule, right? The last team that's I don't know about this one, kind of going into it. I think Auburn has a little bit of boogeyman traits there too, a little bit, just because Bruce Pearl being a legendary coach. That one's at Auburn, I believe.
It is. It's
at Auburn. And then Ole Miss a little bit too with Coach Beard, but Ole Miss has lost some games. There hasn't really been, any no doubt that Ole Miss is, that team just yet. They are a scary team, sure. Chris Beard, good basketball coach for sure. But, I think, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Tennessee was really the last, I guess, boogeyman team on the schedule, if you will. And you just went into their house and killed them, right? I was a little bit more expecting South Carolina to lose a close one in Knoxville and then maybe have a chance to win the one in Columbia. But now you have to go defend your own honor and sweep the season series against one of the best teams in the country. And, sitting here saying that this team is more than capable of doing that, having them not ranked is the talent level on this team. And that win proves that, they should have been ranked a couple of weeks ago. Tennessee sitting at 5 at that point. I mean, after this, will drop a little bit. But, to beat a team that was ranked at 5 is a statement regardless of ranked or unranked. So, I mean, even if they were ranked in the top 20, say they didn't crack into the top, 8, 15, 16, whatever. I think a top 20 win would still even, move them up. So, yeah, at the end of the day, rank them at the end of the day.
I think so. I think rest of the schedule, just run through real quick. At Georgia should be a win. I think you split with Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a very good team. Vanderbilt at home next Saturday. I think you should win that game. At Auburn's tough. I think that's probably the toughest game, one of the two toughest games left on the schedule, because it's at Auburn in Alabama, and Auburn's, I'm guessing pretty pissed right now just because they just lost to their arch rival at Alabama, and I think they lost to Mississippi State too, if I'm not mistaken. So I know it's a few weeks from now, but I think that's going to be a game where Auburn's just really going to be like, okay, no more messing around. And we'll see what happens. But then LSU, I imagine that's probably a win. Like I said, at Ole Miss, you might split it. At A&M, you never know. I think that's a long trip, so we'll see what happens. But then you got 2 straight home games against Florida and Tennessee. Florida, I would imagine South Carolina probably wins that game. And then Tennessee back here. I mean, look, Tennessee, I know it's late in March, but that's going to be a Tennessee team that's going to be fuming about this game. It's still going to be on their mind. Just think about when South Carolina dropped 63 on them, and then this year Tennessee fuming about that game a year later, and they go out and beat South Carolina in football by 20. So it's just you really got to take care of business. And then you have at Mississippi State to end the year, the team that you started this whole conference slate with. So realistically, I think at most, I think you're looking at maybe 3 to 4 losses, maybe 4 or 5, depending on how you really play and bounce back after a game that you might drop. But that's crazy to think about, man. I think that just however they finish the season, if they continue to play their brand of basketball, like I keep saying, they're going to be fine.
Yeah, Lamont Mark brings up masterclass of Gamecock defense. Yeah, absolutely. The French defense and Lamont Paris, if you will. I think I'm going to start calling it the French defense because these guys. You saw Miles Studi. If you have it, he posted himself saying "shh" at the free throw line. Said "fun night in Paris." So that was fun. This team is embracing the quarter zip and just kind of the goofiness that Lamont brings. Jack, that's helping a lot, and I'm sure you're seeing that being around the team.
Yeah, they're definitely having a lot of fun. I think LP brings a really good vibe to the group that I think. It didn't feel like this at all last year, right? It was a lot of off the court drama, and losing sucked, and I think it kind of boiled over at some points last year. But with this year, everyone loves a winner, right? Everyone loves a winner, and everyone's having a good time when they're winning. But I think, we have seen this team respond over and over again when things get tough. Now, if they end up going through some sort of skid at some point, I think that's going to be the ultimate test of, okay, backs up against the wall. We're back in that same spot again. How do we respond? And I think they'll be able to do it. However tough these games are, I think they're going to be able to, walk out there and do what they have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it, Jack. Well, it is getting close to the end of our time. We'll hit some quick ads before we get our final thoughts. First off, our good friends over at Liberty Tax. Taxiety is that uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time. If you're in a hurry for your refund, call in the tax team at Liberty Tax. They are fast, accurate, and guaranteed. On the other hand, if you think you might be wrong, Uncle Sam, talk to the Liberty Tax team to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. Locally owned and operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. Open 9 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays with multiple service options. Start through Liberty Tax mobile app or through the desktop portal. Make an appointment or just walk in. Give a call to upload your tax documents, and when you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. Give them a call on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-462-5576. Once again, 803-462-5576 for all of your tax needs. Jack, the show is also brought to you by our good friend over at the Movement Mortgage Network. That is Clint Hammond. Clint Hammond's our guy. In need of help with your mortgage, call on our good friend Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage Network. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, which allows him to help everyone from the first-time home buyer to the complicated and complex jumbo buyer, whether you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance. Nothing is more important than our well-thought-out financial strategy that comes with 5-star customer service. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former Gamecock quarterback Perry Orth with their mortgages. So give our guy Clint a call. He's above us on all of our Gamecock Central Live programming, 803-771-6933. 803-771-6933 for all of your mortgage needs. That's our guy, Clint Hammond. Jack, about ready to wrap things up. Any final thoughts, from the win at Tennessee?
Yeah, like I said, it's I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when I say this. Like it's still, I think, sinking in. Just I think it was a stressful game last night, and that's the way it should be, right? When you play the best, you really gotta bring your A game, and I think South Carolina did. And now the task is, okay, you go to Georgia on Saturday. How are you going to get a win there? I think it's one step at a time, one game at a time. And at the same time, for fans out there, I said this morning on 107.5 of the game, I think you really just have to enjoy the moment, enjoy the ride as it is right now. I think, this doesn't happen too often with South Carolina basketball, right? It was just last year where they were 11-21 and everyone was, not happy with what was going on here. But now that they are a potential tournament team, I think it's important to just remember that this doesn't happen often. So just have fun with it and enjoy the ride while you can, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. A win on Saturday is not promised. So enjoy these wins as they come, because like I said, they don't happen too often so far.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I think it was a massive win up there in Rocky Top. Massive win. You're able to steal a game from one of the toughest opponents on your schedule. Yes, you have to play them again, and to be able to steal one on their home floor was just so big for you and your program. To do it in back-to-back weeks is even bigger. Your team is playing close, tight-knit basketball. They're sharing the rock. They're playing defense. The French defense is alive and well. And yes, like Jack said, if you are in Columbia, you should just take this team for what it is. Be excited that there's winning basketball in Columbia on both sides, the men's and women's. Dawn's team is also just as fun to follow. I know we haven't been covering them as much recently, especially after the big win over LSU. But yes, appreciate this for what it is, because having winning basketball coming into March and April is a lot of fun. So just appreciate this ride, wherever this team winds up. Both teams wind up. Just appreciate it for what it is. And James says our defense is tournament winning good. I don't know if it's Final Four good because we're small in the front court, but we will definitely be a tough out. Yeah, absolutely, James. Taking us off on a good note, because that's a very good point. Just the way that they play is good enough to match up logistically with any size. I mean, obviously, you have some taller guards might be a problem, but again, they're doing it in the SEC. They're winning matchups with teams they shouldn't beat in the SEC, so there should be a lot of faith going into the tournament. That will do it for us here at the Hard Fowl. Thank you guys for tuning in to tonight's episode. Appreciate you guys tuning into last night's episode of the post-game show. Jack joined us. Me, Mike, you and I were hosting. So appreciate everyone tuning into that. And then also tune in to Afternoon Drive tomorrow with Mike. And then also the walkthrough Sunday nights at 7 o'clock. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and have a good rest of your week.